Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to get into something really interesting. What actually builds a social movement? Is it that one big explosive moment that everybody talks about? Or is it the slow, careful work that happens behind the scenes when no one's even watching?
You know, history loves to remember the giants, right? The big names, the famous faces, but who actually lays the foundation that they're all standing on? So let's frame it this way. Imagine two students of community organizing having a debate. One says it's all about the brave individual, that one person who finally acts. But the other one pushes back and says, yeah, but without a plan, that action is just a flash in the pan. We're going to dig into both sides of that argument.
All right, let's dive right in. We're going to explore these two forces, the spark and the architect, by looking at the stories of two absolutely incredible women from the civil rights movement who you might not know as well as you should. Claudette Colvin and Ella Baker.
Okay, so argument number one from our first student, they're saying that absolutely nothing gets started without a spark. It's that moment where one person, just filled with conviction, stands up and says, I've had enough. That one act of defiance, it just shatters the idea that things can't change, and it shows everybody else what's actually possible.
To really get this, I want you to come with me to Montgomery, Alabama back in 1955. Just try to picture it. You can feel the air. It's thick with that heavy, shimmering southern heat. And you can hear that sound, the rhythmic grumble of a city bus engine, a sound that pretty much defines the daily routine in a segregated city. It's right here, in this totally ordinary moment, that our spark is about to ignite.
15. That's it. That's how old Claudette Colvin was, a 15-year-old kid, and she refused to give up her seat on a segregated bus. Now here's the kicker. This happened 9 whole months before Rosa Parks made her famous stand. 9 months.
And you have to understand, this wasn't some big, pre-planned protest. It was deeply personal. She said it herself. I felt like Sojourner Truth was pushing down on one shoulder and Harriet Tubman was pushing on the other. I couldn't move. Just think about that. That single, spontaneous act of defiance, that was the spark. It proved the fight was possible. But then our other student would step in and say, hold on. A spark is amazing, but no matter how bright it is, it's gonna burn out if there's nothing there to catch the flame. You need a blueprint. And that brings us to the architect, Ella Baker.
Ella Baker was often called the godmother of the student movement, and her whole philosophy was, well, kind of revolutionary for the time. She had zero interest in what she called a leader-centric crusade, where everyone just follows one charismatic person. No, she believed in a people-centric revolution.
And this right here shows you just how radical her idea really was. See, instead of creating a bunch of followers, Ella Baker's goal was to build more leaders. She wanted to spread power out, distribute it across a whole grassroots network, so the movement would never have to depend on just one person. It's about making the whole community strong. This is how she did it. With groups like SNCC, that's the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, she was never the star of the show. Her role was advisor, facilitator. Her entire goal was to help young activists develop skills and become independent, to teach them how to lead themselves. She wasn't the headline, she was the architect, drawing up the plans for an organization that could actually last. So, back to our debate. Who was right? The student who argued for the spark, or the one who argued for the architect? Well, as you've probably figured out, the real answer is, they both were. You absolutely cannot have one without the other.
I mean, think about it like you're building a house. Claudette Colvin's spark was that incredible moment someone stands on an empty plot of land and says, hey, we can build something here. It proves it's possible. But you can't live in an idea, right? Ella Baker's work was the blueprint, the architectural plan that takes all that energy and organizes it into a solid foundation, something built to withstand anything.
So the most important thing to get here is that these aren't opposing forces. Not at all. They're a necessary partnership. Colvin's defiance basically tested the ground and showed everyone a crack in the wall. But it was Baker's organizing, her architectural plan, that turned that tiny crack into a doorway for thousands of people to walk through. And look, this whole dynamic isn't just some dusty old history lesson. This partnership between the spark and the architect is so incredibly relevant today. You can see its echo in social justice movements happening all over the world right now. The lessons from the foundation they built are basically a timeless playbook for change. From Colvin, we learn that courage is contagious. From Baker, we learn to empower the whole group, not just one leader. And when you put them together, they show us that for any change to really last, that individual spark has to connect to a long-term plan, one that's built from the ground up.
Sure, the tools have changed. Of course they have.
We've gone from sit-ins to digital organizing, from boycotts to viral hashtags, but the fundamental truth, the core need, is exactly the same. You still need that individual spark, and you still need the community's architecture to capture that energy and keep it going.
So in the end, the foundation of change is laid by both. You need the spark, the person brave enough to light the match, and you need the architect, the person patient enough to build the fireplace to contain the fire. So the question this history really leaves us with is a personal one for you. Which role are you inspired to play?